So when the Series X and the PS5 were launching, one of their biggest selling points was that you could get the performance of the latest RTX devices on them. So there was this talk that, oh, the PS5 can be comparable to a 3060 or a 2060 or whatever it was. While the whole time, when it came to software development, it was an entirely different conversation when you looked underneath the hood. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the top played games on Steam. And we're going to look at the PC requirements for these games. We're also going to take some time to look at some of the games that came from the console side of things. That's basically the PlayStation games. And we're also going to look at the Xbox games that are available on Steam. And we're going to be able to narrow down what the developers are actually doing. Because when you have the conversation and say, you can get yourself a gaming PC for very little amounts of money, sometimes even cheaper than the new generation consoles, and you have access to more games and access to spending less, like not paying to play online. The biggest thing that I've seen people put up is, well, you cannot spend the same amount of money to buy yourself a good gaming PC that can match the PlayStation 5 or, match the Series X and so on and so forth. But the reality is, you never really needed to match them to play or enjoy your games. That's the truth. And even here on PC, a lot of people still get access to the exact same games, and the developers go ahead and optimize those games for the potato PCs when you actually take a look at the metrics and the data that's involved. So here, let's go ahead and let's look at the top 100 most played games. In this category, we're going to basically take like the top few, and then I'm going to jump because some games that are popular that we will all kind of, be able to take a look at are not necessarily on this particular list in the top 10. You got to kind of go down to see them. Games like Overwatch and, whatever, they've gone down the list. So let's go ahead and start with Counter-Strike, 2. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you all know that this game is a potato game. This game can run on the pencil that I have in my hand right now if it could generate any kind of electricity. It requires you to have 8 gigs of RAM, a 4 hardware CPU thread, whatever, an i5 750 or higher. This is old school gaming. The PS5 is going to eat this game up, and it is the top played game on PC. So there's not even a conversation that needs to be shown up here. Dota 2 is another game that really has a huge player base. It's got 2.2 million positive reviews. Ooh, I don't think you can add up all the PlayStation PC games and get even 2.2 million reviews. This is a heavily played game. And what are the specs when it actually comes to playing this game? Oh, a dual core from Intel or an AMD 2.8 gigs, 4 gigs of RAM, and a GeForce 8600, ATI Radeon HD 2600. Some of you are probably looking like, what is he talking about? Why? A lot of folk who are actually looking at PC gaming these days, you came in when RTX became a thing. That's when you started talking about PC gaming. You came in when we started talking about, the new RX series in terms of the AMD GPUs, but Radeon used to basically be the name that they went by in terms of all of that. There's Elden Ring, which also will be very surprising to many of you that it would run on a... You know what? Do I even need to look at Elden Ring? Because we have a PS4 version of this game, right? It says there's an error, so if he has a PS4 version of the game, then we know that it can run on a potato. Easy. GTA 5 PS3 game, right? Let's go ahead and click on that. If the thing is going to work, we'll see that, yes, we also can run this game on a Tato, on taters, if we wanted to. We can, you can just fry like tater tots, and possibly the grease will run the game. A Phenom 9850. This is an AMD Phenom. Or an Intel quad core in this category, 4 gigs of RAM, and so on and so forth. Let's now move to games that are a little bit more modern. The free-to-play Destiny, Apex. Let's look at what they're asking for in terms of their demand. And again, by the way, these are the games that, are being the highest played games on the consoles as well. So I'm talking about Apex, Fortnite, Overwatch, and Call of Duty. This is asking you for a HD 7730 or a GT 640, not even GTX in terms of being able to play Apex Legends. These games have been specifically optimized for the lowest possible end hardware that you can get out of it. So this is where the money is. Let's look at what Destiny 2 is asking. Destiny 2 comes out and it's like, oh, well, all you need is an AMD FX 4350. These GPUs, you can pick them up for like $20 if you're lucky on eBay. These CPUs, these GPUs, the GTX 970, if you're lucky on eBay, you can find one for like $50, $60, $70. You can build like a $350 build and you will be in a position to play the top played games that are available here. And let's look at Call of Duty, which is also another one, and we'll be able to basically go ahead and see what the PC specs and requirements are. Oh, an i5 6600 2016, a Ryzen 5 1400, a little bit newer than that, a GTX 960 or a GTX 1650. The 960 can be purchased for very, very little. In case you were doubting, eBay has it for about $34 if you want some, $49, $25. Maybe they're all broken and they're only available for parts. Who knows, but it says used. We can basically take some time to maybe look a little bit into it. It says performs well on the bottom of it. So with basically a Tato, you can basically play all of these games that are the highest played games on Steam, and most of them make their way into being some of the more higher played games even on console. So we've already established that you don't even need a PS5 level PC to be able to engage in these games. But what if we went ahead and we looked at the PlayStation Studio games? What would we see the requirements are? Is it going to be something where you need, say, a game that is, or you need a PC that's comparable to the PS5 to be able to play or enjoy these games? Or are we going to see something specifically different? Let's start out with the third person, really, really decent looking, colorful, everything that you can put your hands on in terms of like all of the graphics and such. And we can pick from our list. I like going with Marvel Spider-Man because this is action infused. This is a top seller. This is one of the highest selling games that has graced the PlayStation platform. When we look at it, we're looking at an i3 4160 and a GTX 950. Ladies and gentlemen, we just saw that you can acquire for yourself a GTX 960, which is better than the GTX 950 for around $40 or $50. That's the GPU, $50 GPU to play a PlayStation game. You can also get yourself an i3 4160 for a measly amount, or the AMD equivalent. They didn't even bother to even give you an AMD. Just like, go get a potato. They didn't even have the time to even give you a specific spec. Then in the recommended requirement, you can use a GTX 1060. This is also like another $50 GPU. Bro, I'm just spitballing and I'm literally like hitting gold every time. Look at this GTX 1060 here on eBay that says used. It says $50. If you want to splurge, maybe you can buy yourself a $69 version of it and it will still work for you. The 1060 was a very popular card at the time that it came out. So, and I think did I own one at the time? I don't remember. But, I used to mess around with all these PC components and just kind of geek out and nerd out and do all kinds of fun builds, buying used parts. And so sometimes you can kind of, look at the saturation in the market. And even with these builds, the PC gamer could already engage in these PS5 games. So the question I kept asking myself in all of this was, why did PlayStation and Xbox sell us this huge performance thing like it was some kind of a big deal, when in reality in the PC space, yes, people were bickering back and forth about performance and such, right? But at the end of the day, on the ground, yes, developers who were very savvy were fine-tuning their games to be able to run some really, really on really low hardware. This is, what's the name? Ghost of Tsushima, which can run on a GTX 960. We just saw that the 1060, which is better than the 960, can be netted for around $50 from a GPU perspective. From a CPU perspective, a Ryzen 3 1200, the CPUs, I'm not really certain about their price points because for the most part, what happens in the CPU market is the folk will basically hang on to, the CPUs, and then after they get to the point where they're no longer really the big thing, they'll come out and try to sell it for a lot of money. So sometimes you might estimate and you estimate really wrong. You might see an old CPU that is really expensive, but the reality is even the newer CPUs are also quite cheap. Well, if we actually took a look, though, after all is said and done, you still got to verify. That's a $25 CPU. So $25 CPU and a $50 GPU can play you Ghost of Tsushima, according to the developers who actually put this particular game in place. Again, The whole performance talk on the consoles and all that was all a distraction to get people to run out of their homes and go buy these devices. At the end of the day, it's not really necessary when you're actually looking at coming to PC. Helldivers 2 is one that actually tries to dial into some of the new stuff, but the RTX 2060 is where it kind of stops for its recommended settings. So we can continue to do this, and when we go even to the Xbox side, the Gears, let's say like Gears of War 5, Gears 5, right? And we look and say, okay, what does Gear 5 have, cooking under its, under the hood in the oven? You see, it's an FX 6000. This was AMD's, before they moved into Ryzen, this was approaching the end of their stuff. And then Intel i3 Skylake. Ooh, that's like 2016, bro. And then here, you also see these parts. The GTX 1660 is recommended. They don't even recommend the RTX for a game like Gears of War. For Forza, let's see what Forza 5 is saying on the, on the Xbox side, and let's see what they're asking for. They're asking for a Ryzen 3 1200 or an i5 4460. Or a GTX 970, which a 1060, which is the $50 mark, is better. So you buy a 1060, you have yourself a small Ryzen 3, you can enjoy these games. We can keep going through this, but this is what's under the hood that for the most part, the longest time, nobody was saying anything about this. Because PlayStation had a marketing arm and a messaging so strong that they would sit there and tell their own consumers, yeah man, you can play this game at 4K, 120 FPS, and they were like, yeah, 120 FPS, when in reality you don't eat FPS. The main experience is how the game is experienced by you. The game is a good game, and if it's a good game, it's good. 120 FPS is a plus. Like Marvel Spider-Man Remastered, great, no problem. But remember, it was already a great game when it was 30 FPS on the PS4. So that's exactly where we come into the whole conversation with, do you even need, this level of performance with consoles, or do we actually need good games that can leverage exactly what it is that gaming should be about? I think that's where the question needs to be and has always needed to be. And even I myself got in, I got caught up in the conversations. I got caught up in the argument saying, well, you could build a PC that was equivalent to be able to enjoy these games, when in reality, you don't need to, man. Go on eBay if you want. If you want used parts, maybe spend a little bit extra. You can find components that are going to basically run this stuff for you without any problems. It's not really it never really was a big deal at the end of the day. So I think the PC gamer is eating good. The console player is also eating good, depending if they have both consoles. There's nothing wrong with that. But maybe we should lay that argument to rest about, oh yeah, you really do need the PC that costs E, A, B, C, D, E, and G, and your performance, blah, blah, blah. My dude, if a game runs at 30 FPS on your PC, it's stable, it's a good game. Many of us played Dragon's Dogma at less than 60 FPS, and we didn't vomit. They just added the 120 FPS patch, and we still thought it was a good game, right? Some of us did. I played as much as I could. That time permitted me to play. I own it, but time has been really a big issue, and I thought the game looked good. It was running on my 4090 like crap, but I'm not sure a 4090 is even a device you should be worrying about playing your video games on. I use my 4090 for other things like production, game development, and it's still a lot of computer for it, but sometimes I'll go ahead and do some testing, and you could tell that it didn't necessarily matter as to the performance or all that stuff. What really mattered was the quality and the substance of the game. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate you guys so much. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Peace out.